So as I was very kindly introduced, I have been in travel for a number of years, and I have always worked in a bricks and mortar travel agency, which I think is a better option for everybody involved. We can put together your whole program, we can make sure there aren't any components missing. If something needs to change, you have someone there that you can go and talk to and make sure that everything gets sorted to the way that you want it to be. It is a little bit of a nuisance when you book something on the internet and you find this absolutely fabulous hotel and it's on the canals of Venice, and you turn up expecting this beautiful, beautiful hotel and you find out it's the one next door. And that does happen, unfortunately. So what you need to do when you're thinking of travelling is to... You can hear? Yeah? What you need to do is, we always suggest that you go to a travel agency, make sure that they are a licensed travel agency and that they do have bricks and mortar and that they do have an after hours number for you. Once again, it's just that security thing that you need, which can make life a lot more pleasant. So we often get people walk in and say, when is the best time to travel? Look, if you know what you want to do, book it. You don't necessarily, you may be thinking, I need to travel to Canada next year. What you can do, you can put in a pre-registration for that, which means you're first on the list, and you're first on the list to get all of the benefits that discounts can be applied to that booking. They're always refundable, so if it works out, look, no, I'm not going to go, you get your money back. So there are some really good ways that you can do that. Some of the tour operators, such as the DVD that's going here is APT, they will offer pre-release costs, and that is another way that you can save on those. They will give you early bird rates, they will give you past passenger rates. Quite a few of the tour companies will also include transfers to and from the airport. There are a multitude of ways that you can save dollars. So with that, they'll always say you need to pay a deposit. In order to get your early bird, you will need to have it paid by a certain date. That can work really well for some people, particularly if it's a case where you're going early in April. They say you need to pay by December. You're only paying a month in advance, but you're saving 10%. So always ask what discounts are available. Ask if there are any more. And then if they say no, there aren't any more, it's like, well, can you just ask one more time? Never be afraid to ask if there are discounts. You can only be told no. So what you need to look at is, in another way, if you can't plan that far in advance, they do also have last-minute specials that they can do. But if you know that you want to go to Spain in September, book it at the early bird rate. There is no guarantee that they are going to have a last minute on that date that you want to go to the place that you want to go to. So you just do need to weigh up in your mind if you can book that far in advance, or if you're willing to be a little bit flexible. You also need to have a thought on choosing your destination. So if you prefer to travel in winter or in summer, do you want to be there when the best weather is there and it's really, really busy, or would you prefer to travel sort of like when it's starting to cool down? Personally, I like to travel probably if I'm going to the Northern Hemisphere, I usually go sort of like September, October. It's out of school holidays, it's out of their main season, it's a little bit cheaper, it's not as busy. But everybody has a different way that they like to travel. You also need to look at sort of things like your interests, like if you're interested in flowers and botany, you might like to combine something that goes to the Chelsea Flower Show, it has the Keukenhof Gardens. So if that's your interest, then you are restricted to the time. So there may be other interests that you have where there is a specific event that you think, right, I can combine that with my holiday. And that's the same with travelling within Australia as well as travelling overseas as well. You also need to have a little think whether you like to travel independently, whether you want to travel as a group, do you like to coach, do you like to cruise, do you like to rail? All of these things are questions that your travel agent should be asking so that we can tailor-make whatever it is that is your dream holiday. So you have an idea of what it is in your head, and what we have to do is we have to ask the right questions to make sure that we are fulfilling your dream. Because really, when you walk into the office for that first consultation, that's when your holiday starts. Once you've decided on what your holiday is, you should be taking out your travel insurance. Your cancellation clause activates as soon as you take your policy. So therefore, if you've paid a $2,000 deposit, you are eligible to claim that back, because quite often you'll find that deposits are non-refundable. We can't actually tell you what insurance to take. We can only guide you and give you prices. You need to read your product disclosure statements. It's illegal for us to actually tell you what to do, as much as we would like to assist. And also at that time you do need to declare any pre-existing medical conditions that you have. With most travel insurances now, they are done online and they are instantaneous. Very, very few reasons why you would need to go and get a doctor to fill out anything. We need to know sort of, the questions are all there that we just ask you. It's a yes or no answer, and then they access it straight away. So now one of the questions that we do get asked quite a bit is why there is a difference in cost. I will probably go more towards an international, but it's a similar situation for domestic coaching as well. It's going to be a case the size of the coach. So if you have a 52-seater, it's going to cost less than a 20-seater. So it's all to do with the where you stay, the style of accommodation. If you're going to stay in the centre of town, you're going to pay more. If you stay in a motel, you're going to pay less. So all of these things come into your international travel. It's also the number of inclusions. So whether all meals are included, whether breakfasts are included, whether 4 lunches are included. And it also depends on the location that you're travelling to. Some countries are a more affordable country than another country. So they are things that can make a difference to the cost that you're looking at. You also need to work out whether it's a case that you like to travel in a large group or a small group. Whether you want to do little modules that all work in together, so that you're with people sometimes without other times. You need to figure out, are you a 3-star, a 4-star, a 5-star traveller? The way that the star rating is in hotels, it's just the facilities that they have. It doesn't mean that they are better. It just means they have more facilities. So if you're staying at a hotel that is further out of town, the cost is going to be less than in town. So you have to sort of make up your mind, do you want to stay in town and not have to use public transport in and out? Because that can be an additional cost. So it's always, these are the things that you need to be asking to make sure that you're getting what you want. And it's a similar scenario with cruising. Like, you can have your small ship cruising, which is what I would prefer. You'll find it's a more discerning cruiser. It's more about the itinerary than the ship itself. And quite often they will have guest lecturers on, or there is a specific reason why they do this cruise. It could be around through the Mediterranean, but what they are doing is they are having a look at the medieval castles along the way. And they'll have a guest speaker who can explain all about the history of that region. Other people would prefer to go on the mid-sized ships like the Dawn and the Aria that leave out of Brisbane, which are great for families, and they do nice, quick, simple little trips. You can do as much or as little as you want. They have a great price point. So it's really what suits you. There is also the beautiful river cruising as well, and they also have different price points. So you're going to have ones that are all-inclusive, which will be all of your wines with dinner, breakfast, lunch. You can have champagne for breakfast. That usually puts you out for the rest of the day, but you can if you want. And also all of the sightseeing is included as well. They have a couple of different choices that you can do. They also have, like you might decide to walk around Cologne and go into the cathedral. You can do the walking tour that goes in and around all of the windy little streets, which is fabulous. If you are not quite able to walk as much, they do have a nice easy-paced one as well, and you're still getting to see the same things. So they have all of those arranged for you. By paying a little less, you can then choose, they still have a lot of inclusions, but you may choose to do some of their shore excursions, which you must pay for. And it may not be as inclusive rather than drinks all day. They'll give you local wine of an evening and lunchtime. And that all affects the costs. And once again, it's a case where your travel agent really should be asking you all of the questions of what your expectations are, and then you can marry them up. If you have a champagne taste and a beer budget, well then what we do is we try and mix and match and figure out how we can come to a good compromise where your wallet is going to be happy and you're going to be happy as well. With the smaller ships, you will find that they are more expensive, they are more inclusive. Quite often the prices are in US dollars. It's a good idea to make sure that you find out whether it's Australian or US dollars. And also with your small ship cruising, you'll find that also takes into account your like your expedition ships. So going really close into the Inside Passage in Canada, or if you're going down into Antarctica, you will actually be able to get out onto Antarctica, as opposed to the large cruise ships where it says, hello, that was Antarctica, you can say you've seen it. So there are different ways that you can travel, but you do have to be willing to pay the price if necessary. Look, there are some ships, and I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but there are the mega liners, like 6,000 people. And needless to say, they won't come into Brisbane because Brisbane Port just isn't big enough. But that is for the cruiser who, like, they just love to cruise. They really couldn't care less about a destination. The cruise ship is their destination. They have sidewalks. You can get an interior balcony cabin. And you actually look down, there's one that's all done up like Central Park in New York, and you get your inside balcony cabin and you can look down and see all the cafes and everything that's in the middle of the ship. It is weird, but it can be done, and some people really enjoy that. With regard to the ship, if you're looking at cruising, your best place to be is going to be in the middle of the ship. And you're allowed to pay for that privilege. The further towards the back, you pay a little bit less. Up to the pointy end, less again. That is probably going to be the less stable part of the ship, so if you don't really like a bit of rock and roll, go to the middle, and that will make life a lot more pleasant while you're cruising. So one thing to keep in mind as well, just as a bit of a tip, is that the prices that you see in a brochure are an indicative price only. A travel agent season virtually runs from the 1st of April through to the 31st of March. That's sort of how we kind of work. Brochures come out sort of 6 months before that. So they can't guarantee that pricing is going to be the same. So just be aware it's an indication, it's not a guaranteed price. With regard to passports, for most destinations outside of Australia, they need to be valid for at least 6 months when you arrive back into the country. So there's no use going to the airport when you sort of think, right, I'm going to Singapore, I'm going to have a little shop, and it's like my passport expires in June, I'm travelling in February, all good. It'll be a very sad day because you'll be going back home. And it's similar with visas. Your travel consultant will be able to help you out with visas, and you really need to ask them. There's no use looking online because it changes all the time, and really visas need to be starting in sort of like a couple of months before you travel. A couple of exceptions with that would be travelling on an Australian passport if you're going to Canada or the USA. They can be done in a matter of minutes online. They're valid for 2 years, so get them as close to departure as possible. So that way you've got the validity there, and then once you've had your first trip there, you'll be saying, right, time to go again, my visa's still valid, let's go. So when you're taking money, we would always suggest that you take a cash passport or like a travel money card that's like a debit card. You would need to check with your financial institution for credit card fees on Australian credit cards when you're travelling overseas. Quite often you'll find it's 2 or 3%, which makes your bargain not such a bargain anymore. And I would also suggest that you take a small amount of local currency just to get that cup of tea or a glass of water or whatever, because quite often you'll find that they may not accept an Australian dollar. So if you're travelling through Singapore, just pop it, get some, your bank will have it. Crown is another company that deals with money. And it's always handy just to have a few dollars in your pocket. With regard to your devices, such as your iPads, your telephones, not my area of expertise. There are telecom companies who do that, and they are kept up with the latest things. So if you're going to go overseas, all I know is I've got to switch my roaming off. That's about as far as I go. It's not my area of expertise. I can tell people where to go, but I can't tell people how to do their phones. So speak to your telecommunications company, and they will give you the best advice. So with regard to what to pack, always a bit of a dilemma. And always, I think people tend to travel with too much. I've got it down to 13 kilos. And and there is a very good way of doing it. Look, it's really a case for the ladies, keeping it in neutral colours. You also have, when I travel, tend to wear a lot of black, throw in a few scarves, and I look different every day. Well, I tell myself I look different every day. Also get stuff that doesn't sort of crush as well. Things that are sort of like elasticized or have got stretch in them, always good. They're comfortable when you're sitting, when you're moving, when you're walking, when you're bending. And then also, look, if you're travelling in winter, thermals are your new best friend. You can get them now. They're not sort of like the thermals that I remember when I was little. I had a pair of wee willies and they had the little flap at the back, which was quite convenient. But now you've got them, and you can get them sort of like, they almost look like leotards and things like that, and they really look quite smart compared to the old weavy ones. And I find that to be much, much better than having a layer upon layer upon layer and looking like a Michelin man. So I can always do that really sort of quite well. They fold down to nothing. And also what I would suggest too for ladies, men I guess too, is I always take a pashmina on board. I'm not a fan of having an airline blanket around my face. Pashminas work well. Also, with regard to medication, that's probably one of the important things to do or to look at, is always carry it in their blister packs and also have your prescription with you. Don't set it out in your little weekly container. Always have it in blister pack, preferably unopened. There are a few things that you need to organise at home. Things that you need to think of. Things like house sitters, your animal sitters. I always make sure I've got a loaf of bread in the freezer and long life milk and tea bags. That way I know when I come home, I know that I can have a cup of tea in the morning, have a slice of toast, and then I can worry about shopping or doing whatever it is that I can. Just make sure that you've got someone collecting your post so it's not hanging out of your post office, or let the post office know that you're going. Also make sure that you let your bank know that you're going away. They may see, look, you may have found this fabulous piece of sculpture at Broken Hill, and it's only $2,000. And then they say, Papa, you're not allowed to do that because you live in Brisbane. So make sure your bank knows where you're going, and then they will be able to flag the destinations that you're going to, and you won't have that problem. Also, if you're going away, I believe it's longer than 6 weeks, do make sure that you let Centrelink know, just to avoid any problems there. And if you are also going away, register with DFAT, and that way they know where you are. If there is something happens in the area that you're in, they know that you're there and they know to look for you. Look, wrapping up a little, sorry it's been a little bit quick, things that you need to take with you, adapters. Packing cells are really good so that you can keep sort of like your clean clothes away from your dirty clothes, and flat and nice and easy to pack. Your chargers for your phones and your devices. I always travel with a spare battery for my camera. So I've got one in the camera and one spare, always charged, so if I decide to take a video and it drains a bit, I can still take my pictures. And also any travel guides that you can possibly take as well. Look, just remember, I suppose, that things can change when you're away, irrespective of where you're travelling to, anywhere in the world. Things can change. It can be weather, it can be traffic, it can be anything. Look, be accepting of that change. No one meant for it to happen. Look, embrace the change. You could find something a whole lot better out there than what you actually planned to do. So I am actually here all day in the exhibition hall. So if people have got questions or want to come and have a chat, I don't mind a bit of a chat. So thank you very much.